where did you learn all of that, those skill sets to be able to go and basically do it on your own right away?
I learned it from working acquisition for someone else and providing value to them. And it's really not just even on the sales side of things, but I mean, we're doing multifamily development right now where same thing. I would find deals early on that most people would try to take down themselves, and I'd go bring it to someone, sell it to them for pennies on the dollar in exchange for knowledge. So I think, providing value is one of the biggest things you can do, at least early on, in this game.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Creative Financing Podcast. I'm Nicole Kamanjian. I'm here with Cody Richard and the host of this show, Jeff Rappaport. This is episode 249, and today we have special guests, Nick Anderson and Brandon Vezzozo. If you're looking for a mentor, check out roimentors.com. Jeff has two mentorships, the Apprentice Program and the Creative Financing Academy. You can learn more about these mentorships at roimentors.com. While listening to this episode, if you guys have questions, please head over to the Creative Financing Podcast Facebook group. If you're not part of the community, just search the Creative Financing Podcast in Facebook and ask to join. Looking for a free creative financing class? Jeff hosts a virtual one on Zoom the second Thursday of every month, so bring your questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can ask your questions in the comments below. Lastly, we want to thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing this podcast with your friends.
Well,
you like my new intro, Jeff?
What's that? Yeah, I do like the new intro. Thanks, Nicole. And with one little amendment, Cody is not with us today, so
yeah.
But he will be back. So first of all, thank you both for joining us today. I've gotten to know you over the last few months. You're in my Creative Financing Academy, and we actually just chatted. You're in Collective Genius. I know you've gone through sub 2 training, and I bet my best guess is that there's probably some other stuff that you've done as well or are doing now concurrently. And the reason that I wanted to have both of you on is that I'm impressed with how quickly you've picked things up and what you've done as far as taking creative finance, using it in your business, and basically growing your business real quickly. And I think our listeners will, I'm always interested in getting different people's perspectives on what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they're trying to accomplish. There's not a one way fits everyone kind of model. And the true reason I wanted both of you on is I want people to understand what's possible. So if we can take a few minutes and get an idea of who you guys are and how long you've been doing this and what you're doing, that kind of thing, some background, and then we'll dive deeper into some things that you guys do really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent a lot of time in my previous W-2. So I was an athlete into my mid-20s, had an injury, ended up working in the oil field and in kind of gravel pits. And I found myself in a lot of heavy equipment, which allowed me a lot of time to what I eventually discovered, listening to podcasts, books, etc. A lot of time, 12, 14 hours, in that equipment by yourself. So I, a couple of years ago, discovered your podcast along with a couple of others. Started just educating myself and kind of turned that into a classroom of sorts where I could listen to a couple of books a day or, 10 or 12 podcasts, and started just learning the basic concepts of real estate, wholesaling, creative finance in general. And I would say after about 6 months of doing that, I reached out to, I actually read a book and, said, go provide value to someone else, right? And so I found somebody who was doing some wholesaling. Happened to be his first flip, and I found him on like a social Bigger Pockets, and said, hey, the numbers look great. I had no idea what I was talking about, but said, hey, the numbers look awesome. Flip looks great. How can I, provide value to you? So started out just going and taking pictures and videos of properties after work. That kind of developed into, hey, how can I add more value to this guy? I started learning kind of sales and how to talk to sellers at that point. And
so he took you on, basically. He's like, hey, you'll give me some value, and I'll help you kind of see what goes on behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah. And at that time I couldn't offer much. I mean, I have a mentor that told me when I started, you can offer, money, time, relationships, or I can't think of the fourth, but at the time I only had time to offer, right?
Sure.
And it wasn't very much time because I was working so much. So just trying to figure out where I could add value to him. That eventually turned into, hey, can I make some phone calls for you? And from there, I really just started diving into it, full steam. So I started working acquisition on the weekends, going and getting appointments that he had negotiated over the phone, signed in person, and, slowly started just developing my skill set over the next 6 months or so. And by that point, started getting some traction, a few wholesale deals here and there, and decided just to kind of take the dive and,
Wow.
and quit my W-2. The stars kind of aligned. I had a couple of contracts in escrow and had a bad day with my boss, and just kind of, all right, this is it. So
how long ago was this, Brandon?
This was in, it's been a little over a year now.
Wow.
Since I quit my W-2. And so, or no, excuse me, it's been 2 years.
2 years.
It's been 2 years now. Yeah. Since I quit my W-2, I worked acquisition with Ryan Weimer, who was, we built up, we were doing, on average 5 to 7 deals per month, just really wholesaling at that point.
And he was an experienced investor, correct?
Yeah, I mean, he had been doing it. He was doing about a deal a month when I met him,
Okay.
Somewhere around there. And then I got to kind of witness him build out a business, while I was working acquisition, which really helped. It gave me a kind of a launching pad into starting my own business, because I got to learn while I was making money, and I would get to evaluate deals as I was bringing the deals in. So that was super, super valuable in my journey.
Yeah.
So I got to the point where I was doing 5 to 7 deals on my own per month in acquisition.
Was it just you at this point?
It was just me. Yep. And so I transitioned into my own business. I kind of kept that momentum, and I was doing a few deals per month, but realized that I really just had a high paying job at that point, and so I really wanted to look into having an actual business. And so I started bringing on other people in acquisition to kind of free up my time to help grow the business and work on different facets of the business. I found Nick in another group, in another mentorship. He came on an acquisition, and I realized pretty quickly he had what it took, both from a taking action perspective, but also just, he would go above and beyond. So that eventually turned into a relationship where he's now the COO of Creative Home Solutions. Has helped, implement a lot of systems, processes, things that were all in my head that, we're able to actually get on paper, document, and has made things a lot easier. So now it's to the point where I had to take a few steps back, but now we're able to scale a little bit faster. Nick, you want to add anything?
Before we get to Nick, I want to ask you a couple of quick questions, because so I love that you figured out a way to get in real estate and learn from someone that's doing by providing value, right? Which is, and you were clear. All you had was some time, and it wasn't a whole lot, but you were willing to do what you needed to do. When you started, now you're having to generate leads, you're pre-screening those leads, you're determining what to make offers on, and so where did you learn all of that, those skill sets, to be able to go and basically do it on your own right away?
I learned it from working acquisition for someone else and providing value to them. And it's really not just even on the sales side of things, but I mean, we're doing multifamily development right now, where same thing. I would find deals early on that most people would try to take down themselves, and I'd go bring it to someone, sell it to them for pennies on the dollar in exchange for knowledge. So I think, providing value is one of the biggest things you can do, at least early on, in this game.
Yep. which I find to be very impressive that you were able to do the amount that you were doing all by yourself and doing every aspect of it, right? And I assume that you started out wholesaling. Is that true?
Yeah. So obviously the goal was to buy and hold, but I didn't have money. So it was figuring out, that's where wholesale and creative finance came into play. Was I didn't have any money. So I either had to get creative or generate capital. So I started working on both.
All right. Well, I just know starting out in wholesaling and being able to generate the leads and talk to the sellers and then present offers and follow up and then escrow and find the buyers. It's a lot of work. And for one person to do 5 to 7 deals a month is you were working a lot, weren't you?
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, I looked at it as, for the first time in my life, I had always had a W-2. And so I'd always had a ceiling. So once I realized I didn't have a ceiling, then it was actually worth, putting in that work or kind of compounding that effort every single day, if that makes sense.
Well, and hopefully what the goal is, whether you meant it to be or not, is that you quickly find out, I don't have to do all this work, right? I learned it and I could teach someone else to do different aspects of it. So I don't have to work 14 hours a day to try to make this all happen. Awesome. All right,
I have
Nick.
a question for you, Brendan.
Oh, sorry.
Before we move on to Nick, you mentioned that you offered to call people or, call sellers. So I know like in the mentorships with Jeff and stuff, that's some of the things that he teaches. And I've had people like reach out to me and ask like how they can bring value. When I say like, if you can pre-screen some sellers, that'd be great. Like, where did you find, like, what motivated you to actually want to do that? Because I feel like it's really hard for people to pick up the phone and actually talk to someone else and do that pre-screening. It's just really hard.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's also what gives you the most leverage, right? Like if it's something that most people are not willing to do, then it probably makes you a little more valuable if you're willing to do it, right? So I just saw it as some even more value that I could provide. But I think that what it came down to is with anyone, you want to figure out, how can I help you? Are there any glaring holes in your business? And for me, that was one I could identify. After I learned what the process of wholesaling was, I realized, okay, he's doing everything, right? Just like Jeff mentioned, he's doing everything. If I could free up his time, or if I can make some of those calls, or if I can make just as many as him and double his lead flow and his potential deal flow, then that's how I can add the most value at this point. And for most people starting out, I think that's probably one of the better ways you could add value to someone.
Great question. Great answer. All right, Nick. So, and if you're listening to this, you don't see Nick, but Nick looks like he's 19 years old. I'm pretty sure you're older than that, but maybe not a whole lot older. So Nick, what's the story? What's your story?
I am 30, but 30 is the new 18 is what I've been saying.
There you go.
Yeah, feeling like this is my first year as an adult, but my story is really different from Brandon's. I spent about 6-7 years post college in the W-2 world. I was working for a multi-billion-dollar staffing company. I spent a few years in cash finance, so treasury, managing foreign assets and doing foreign exchange and things like that. And then I transitioned, spent a few years in project management. So it was like a really small team doing 200, McDonaldized office build outs a year. It's like a 4-person team doing that. So I spent a lot of time just cutting my teeth in that corporate world while Brandon was doing all this. And at a certain point, I discovered wholesaling and really just started taking kind of small steps in that direction. So, at one point I was sending out text messages and I thought that was, a lot of, hey, I'm doing it. I'm out here putting in the work.
People do that all the time,
Unfortunately,
right? That they convince themselves, right? That, and it's better
Yeah.
than nothing, no doubt. But
yeah,
It's the avoidance
absolutely.
of picking up the phone.
Yeah, yeah, it really was. So to kind of echo that advice, that's the best lever that you can pull down when you're getting into this industry is just get on the phone, help someone get on the phone, make as many calls as you humanly can. And that's really where things started to transition for me, because I met Brandon in the same mentorship. I think, yeah, it was sub 2. And really someone just told me, you got to get on the phone and start putting in work. And that's where everything started to change for me. So, fast forward 2 years into discovering what wholesaling and real estate investment was. And now I've got, I'm working the project management job. I'm still partially doing some of the treasury functions in the W-2. I've got 2 different partnerships, not Brandon at that time. I've got multiple VAs. I'm spending every ounce of time that I have either in the W-2 or in real estate investing, and I'm losing my hair, losing my mind, losing everything, because it just wasn't working out. So I had gotten a couple of deals, and I just decided, I'm going to roll all this down, and I'm just going to put all my effort into joining someone else's team as an acquisitions person, so I can really focus on sales, really focus on pitching creative, and just really building the skill set that counts in this business. And I met Brandon by trying to sell him the deal.
oh, really?
We just got to talking. Yeah, I tried to sell him the deal, and we got to talking, and he told me basically, hey, I'm not looking for anyone right now, but I can tell you're a really good culture fit. And the rest was kind of history.
So when you were, and I love your story, because I think it's really, I think Brandon's the exception. Nick, I think you're the more road that almost everyone travels, right? That
Yeah.
we try to get into real estate. If we got a job, we're doing them both. And, we're trying to dip our toe in, we're trying to make some additional money. We're trying to prove to ourselves that this will work. And, then I can quit my job and start doing it. But were you interested in real estate, or why were you looking for something else when you had your W-2 job?
Yeah, I think honestly, this was 3 or 4 years now, I think, ago. So honestly, I drank the Kool-Aid a little bit. Financial freedom, everything that had to offer, or supposedly had to offer. I think
Right.
we know it's a lot more work than was originally advertised. But yeah, just what the kind of life that I could build and how quickly I could build it, which is true. It just takes a lot more work. So that was really what got me into it, what it could do for me. And, I had a lot of the skill sets needed. So
You became acquisitions working with Brandon. What skill set do you think, and I'm not even sure who I'm asking this question of, maybe both of you, but why acquisitions? What could you bring to the table, Nick, that and Brandon, what did he bring to the table that you thought, hey, this could really help me?
Well, I think go ahead, Nick.
Well, I think, just like I was saying, one of the really good things about getting into a mentorship is seeing there's 1,000 people in the mentorship. You can see what 1,000 people are struggling with. Everyone needs more deals. Everyone needs more people on the phones. Everyone needs manpower. And so rather than spend your time learning how to, grueling over analyzing deals and running comps and integrating and doing all these different things, it's like most people need deal flow to even get to that point in their business. And they need a lot of it. You need a lot of deals before you even need half of that integrator stuff. So I just rolled back and said, okay, well, I need that skill set, and I need to learn how to do this on the fly a little bit quicker. And I know someone's going to need that. So
you focused on one aspect and became good at it, became competent at it, and then let Brandon kind of do what he does on the rest.
Yeah. I think honestly, starting out, it was find a warm body, right? No offense to you, Nick, but it was like at first it was find anyone to alleviate, to give me more time to go do some of the higher money making activities. But I quickly found out, and Nick helped me quickly find out that there were, deal flow wasn't a problem at a certain point with enough of us calling. It was, he was able to help me identify a lot of holes in the business, and obviously just we have a lot of similar skill sets, but we also differ in a lot of ways. And there's things he can do very quickly that I struggle with. And he's just a lot more detail oriented. So that quickly, led into the relationship growing, to another level. And now I think he knows a heck of a lot more about the business, especially certain aspects on the back end, even on the front end that I couldn't even tell you about. So it's been amazing.
So
that's a polite way of saying I asked too many questions.
Well, this partnership, it sounds like, started in one way and then evolved into something completely different, which is, happens all the time. I have an apprentice that he started with me 6-7 years ago, and he had moved here from Iraq and could barely speak English. And he went through my program, and I was just super impressed by him. He just did not care. And he's been with my team for the last 4 years, and I rely on it. He's my right-hand man, right? He handles all kinds of stuff, and he just does it. And he could do real estate on his own if he wanted to, and but he likes being part of the team, and I don't know what I would do without him. So things kind of evolve, and you got to take that chance. And obviously you guys saw something within one another, and things have kind of evolved. So good for you guys. Why don't we talk about a little bit, and then we'll kind of wrap this episode up, and then we'll really get into some nitty-gritty stuff. But so Brandon, you're in Idaho. Nick, where are you?
I'm in Maryland.
Maryland. So you do everything virtually, correct?
Yeah, I've never been to Idaho.
Okay. And so you have your meetings, your calls, whatever, all virtually. And so there's not a lot of face-to-face, well, other than maybe Zoom, right? But what markets are you focused on now?
Well, we started out in Idaho primarily, then we added Montana and went into Florida. That went pretty well. Then we decided to kind of branch out a little bit and start messing in some other states, and we got a lot of deals, but we weren't quite ready for that. I mean, it's, every deal, it's learning a new market, finding boots on the ground, comping,
title companies.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so we found that, like you said, you can scale too fast in a lot of ways. And I think that we were doing that. So we've scaled back to, I would say 80% plus is of what we do is in Idaho. Maybe 10 to 15% in Montana, and a few properties here and there in Florida for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're still wholesaling. What else are you doing?
Obviously we're adapting, right? I would say a year ago we were probably wholesaling or flipping 70% of our deals and maybe buying creatively on 30%. And I think that's completely flipped now to where at least 70 to 80% of our deals have been creative. But yeah, we're wholesaling. We will wholesale or flip. I am building a portfolio, of long-term investments as well. So we buy and hold. We wrap, we'll set up financing and, wrap those terms to end buyers, whether that be an owner, occupant, landlord, et cetera. So we do a little bit of everything. Primarily, we'd like to wholesale more, but as this market's changing, we're we're having a harder time just getting deals that deep and finding, there's not a lot of buyer activity. I would say investors and flippers are on the sidelines right now, and they want to play the game. And I think one of the easier ways we can help them play the game is by structuring terms, correctly. So that's
wholesaling creative finance deals.
Yep, exactly.
Got it. Okay. I know you're involved in some land. Are you in it? Is that stuff that you're involved in development? And or building, or is it more wholesaling land to developers and builders?
So we've got some parcels that we are kind of land banking that cash flow, as that have single family homes on them now as rentals. So those are kind of land banks. We have one in the process right now that we are going through entitlement on a multifamily. So that'll be about 30 units and some multifamily units with some commercial space. That's in Boise. And that one, we're not sure. We may end up building that out. We may end up building to sell, or we may just end up selling after it's fully entitled. I think we'll kind of evaluate exit strategies, but I think cash is king right now. And I think, having liquidity is really important right now. So we're heavily weighing things, looking at through that lens.
Yeah, and anything that you got to go to the bank for bank financing is going to probably be more of a challenge, and certainly going to be a challenge cash flow wise or holding cost wise, because interest rates are not I was going to say not our friend, but in reality they are, because we're able to go structure a lot more creative finance deals. But if we actually need permanent financing, not exactly the greatest time to go to the bank and get it. So all right, so we're focusing mostly on, let's say, 2 states, right, with a little bit in Florida. And you've started to build a portfolio of rentals, and you're staying in the middle on some owner finance deals. Do you do any kind of lease option stuff, or is that not part of your?
I don't purchase on lease option. I shouldn't say that. We're purchasing a sub 2 on a lease option right now in Florida, but
okay, wait, hold on. You're purchasing a sub 2 and then going to sell it on lease option?
No, we're actually purchasing on a lease option. So to satisfy the lender,
see.
To clear the seller's DTI,
yes,
we're doing a lease option with the option to purchase it subject to.
I got it. Okay. And if our listeners don't understand that, helps the seller qualify for a new loan, because they're going to give certain debt to income 75% or thereabouts. Is that about right?
Like
whatever payment you're paying for them. Yes. Okay.
Subject to they'll typically clear DTI, but it's usually after a year or so. So they're looking at getting lending immediately, so that kind of satisfies the lender.
Yep. And do you sell at all on lease option?
I do. I did initially. I did a lot of wraps and lease options starting out, just to help build my cash flow, first before I started holding rentals. And so I think I have 3 lease options at this time, where I'll purchase, subject to or seller finance and sell on a lease option.
Okay. So Brandon and Nick do a little bit of everything, which is, after my own heart, because that's what we do too. So, and what I want to do at this point is, Nicole, unless you have any additional questions, I want to wrap this up. Go ahead.
I did, but I think it'll be, I wanted to ask how your numbers have changed, Brandon, in flipping, because I know it's a different market, but I think it could wait for the next episode.
Okay. Well, next episode, what we're going to do is what both Brandon and Nick are really good at is getting no down deals, 0% interest deals, and long-term financing deals. So we're going to talk about what they're doing to generate these leads, how they're talking to these sellers and negotiating these deals. and then, some of their exit strategies as well. And I think our audience will really love that. So stay tuned for our next episode. Go out and create some terms.